So this happened in August. They had their first witness called up, and it was Mr. Lalone's girlfriend at the time, Miss GR. They had her come up to the stand. They asked her questions. This happened in Lakeview in 2005. At the time, they were living in Lakeview on a top apartment of a house. It was 2 apartments. They were living, Mr. Lalone at the time was staying at his girlfriend's. And then the so-called victim, Miss K, I'm not going to say more, but the so-called victim was down on the other apartment. They asked Miss GR if she knew of the so-called victim. She said she didn't know her very well, but knew of her, seen her around. Now they say about the July 31st, beginning of August, and Miss GR was staying with LS, and Mr. William Lalone was also staying there. They wanted her to identify who Mr. Lalone was. She pointed to the defendant, Mr. Lalone. They asked her on the night of July 31st if Mr. Lalone stayed with her, Miss GR, in her apartment that night. She said yes. They asked her what happened on that evening. No verbal response. They asked her what time did you guys go to bed, for instance, on that evening. Mr. L's brother came over and visited him. He hadn't seen him for a long time. So there was people there chit-chatting. So we were all talking, watching a movie, getting, hang out. So they asked her, do you know what time that was? She said, I'm not sure, but I had woken up Mr. L's brother and decided that he was going to spend the night because he was too tired to drive. So Mr. L's brother, I am going to say BJ, was there. And BJ decided to stay the night with his brother, Miss GR, and Mr. William Lalone. And so the plaintiff asked, all right, the state of, the attorney for the people, state of Michigan, asked her, okay, you fell asleep on the couch, right? And because of watching a movie, and then I woke up, she said, again, and when Mr. BJ was going to stay also, I had moved because Mr. L has a mattress he put on the floor for us. So then they asked her, where did you go from there? She said, me and Lalone slept on the mattress. We were there all night. They were sitting at the table, smoking, drinking, while I was laying on the mattress on the floor. The next time she woke up, it was around 12:30. Not sure if anyone was around that time. It was morning hours. She said, well, then I got up and asked Lee, because Will wasn't there. So I asked Al, where was he? And he said he didn't know, maybe outside, he thought. So GR opened the door, went outside, and he was standing at the bottom of the steps. He was standing down by the first floor apartment, not by the first one, at the bottom of the step. They asked her, and what was he doing there? Just standing there. Did you talk to him? Yes. What did you talk about? I just asked him what he was doing, what was happening. I think I went back inside. So you left Mr. Lalone outside? Yes, she said, and then went back upstairs to bed. She didn't know if he was coming back to bed, but I know she was tired, kind of tired and stuff, but she stood up waiting for him for a little bit and then went back to bed. And then she says that she went to smoke. He was out there like on a stairway that goes up to the apartment, smoking heavily. And she went back to bed after she smoked. Mr. William Lalone stayed there on the steps. And she went back to bed. He didn't. He had kept waking her up and talking to her. And she told him she was tired. And we had all went out for that one the night before. So at one point I fell asleep, she says, got up the next morning, went to work, and that's it. She believes she went to work around 10 or 11. At some point, you have to set your alarm, so what she did, she was getting ready for work. At the time, she worked at the gas station in Lakeview, so it didn't take long for her to walk to work. Mr. L took her to work, drove her to work. When she woke up, L and BJ was the only men there. Mr. Lalone wasn't. They were asking if later that afternoon Mr. Lalone came back and something was bugging him. Mr. L and Mr. BJ asked him. He didn't want to talk about it. On that evening, Mr. Lalone had the money. They asked her if he had any money with him. She's like, I don't know. I didn't ask. He wanted to go somewhere. He had a little duffel bag. He just wanted to go anywhere. So then the court asked her, did he bring any clothes with him? She said no, that they cross-examined her. They asked her how long she's been living at the apartment, for at least a couple weeks maybe. Mr. Lalone was staying there shorter. They asked how well do you know Mr. L and Mr. BJ. They didn't know very much about Mr. BJ, but they were somewhat good friends with Mr. L, they thought. Then they asked if he brought any clothes or prior clothes. He had some clothes there, but not very much. I mean, if you're staying at someone else's house, I mean, you bring 1 or 2 pairs of outfits, you know. You're trying your best. So they were trying to get her to pretty much force herself to say, look, this is what happened. I'm trying to make her a lie. They were trying to get her to say that Mr. Lalone was watching the apartment downstairs, you know, casing the point, you know, looking around and stuff, but he wasn't. He was just smoking. They asked her more about they asked her about if they heard Mr. Lalone leaving during the night, and it wasn't. She said she wasn't quite sure. What makes you believe that you heard him leaving the apartment? She said that he wanted to go to work with her, Mr. Lalone did, and to work with his friend M. And he